Dog Day Afternoon wasn't just a gritty bank heist film. It was a pressure cooker of chaos, improvisation, and raw human drama that exploded both on-screen and behind the camera. Between confused police, an inexperienced crew, and Pacino nearly collapsing mid-shoot, the production was as intense as the robbery it depicted. Today, we're unlocking 20 weird facts about Dog Day Afternoon, secrets of casting meltdowns, dangerous filming conditions, and shocking real-life consequences. And stick around for the bonus fact, because the strangest truth about this movie might still be hidden from even its biggest fans. Let's break in. Fact number 1. The real robber watched himself on screen. What audiences didn't know was that the real-life inspiration for Al Pacino's character, John Wojtowicz, actually went to see the film in theaters. The movie is based on his 1972 Brooklyn bank heist, where he tried to rob a Chase Manhattan branch to fund his partner's gender-affirming surgery. When the film premiered, Wojtowicz reportedly laughed, clapped, and even shouted advice to Pacino from the audience. He later said Pacino captured his spirit perfectly, except for one thing. Al looked too good. I was a fat little guy. The surreal sight of a criminal cheering his fictional self underscored the blurred line between reality and cinema. The movie didn't just dramatize a crime, it immortalized it, while the man behind it sat in the shadows, watching his own myth take shape. Fact number 2. Al Pacino nearly quit days before shooting. By 1975, Al Pacino was already a rising legend after the Godfather films, but Dog Day Afternoon almost lost him. Pacino's personal life was in turmoil, and he questioned whether he could handle the emotional weight of playing Sonny. He even called director Sidney Lumet days before shooting to announce he was dropping out. Lumet convinced him otherwise, reminding him this role would be unlike anything Hollywood had ever seen, a crime film driven by character instead of action. Pacino reluctantly agreed, but his fragile state ended up fueling Sonny's jittery, exhausted performance. The nervous tics, the constant sweating, the sense of impending collapse? Those weren't just acting choices. They were Pacino's real mental state, bleeding into the role. Fact number 3. The famous Attica. Chant was improvised. The most iconic line of the entire film, Pacino screaming, "Attica, Attica," at police barricades, wasn't in the script. During filming, Pacino spontaneously invoked the memory of the 1971 Attica prison uprising, when New York State Police killed dozens of inmates during a rebellion. The line electrified the extras on set, many of whom were real New Yorkers who remembered the headlines vividly. The crowd's sudden surge of energy was so authentic that Lumet kept rolling, capturing what looked like raw chaos. That single improvisation turned a tense standoff into a political moment, transforming Dog Day Afternoon from a robbery movie into a statement about distrust of authority in 1970s America. Fact number 4. Filming took place in a real Brooklyn bank. Unlike many Hollywood productions that build fake sets, Dog Day Afternoon was shot inside an actual bank in Brooklyn. The crew had to work in sweltering summer heat with no functioning air conditioning. The building turned into a furnace under the heavy lights, forcing actors and extras to sweat through their clothes for real. Sidney Lumet wanted authenticity, and he got it. Every bead of sweat dripping down Pacino's face was genuine. The suffocating environment added to the realism, but it also pushed cast and crew to exhaustion. Production assistants fainted, tempers flared, and the tension on set mirrored the hostage situation on screen. The Dog Day wasn't just a metaphor, it was a miserable, sticky reality. Fact number 5. John Cazale's role was saved at the last minute. John Cazale, who played Sonny's quiet and unsettling partner Sal, nearly lost his role before cameras rolled. Studio executives worried Cazale wasn't marketable enough, despite his acclaimed work in The Godfather. They wanted a bigger name, fearing audiences wouldn't connect with the nervous, gaunt actor. But Pacino fought fiercely for his longtime friend, insisting no one else could embody Sal's vulnerability and menace. Lumet backed Pacino, and Cazale stayed. His chilling line, Wyoming, when asked which country he wanted to escape to, remains one of the strangest, most haunting moments in the film. Ironically, critics later praised Cazale's performance as the perfect counterbalance to Pacino's firestorm energy. Fact number 6. Pacino starved himself for authenticity. Al Pacino knew Sonny was supposed to look worn down, gaunt, and near collapse. To achieve this, he barely ate during filming, surviving on coffee and a few bites of fruit. His already wiry frame grew thinner, his eyes hollow, his body jittery with caffeine. Crew members begged him to eat, but Pacino insisted the hunger kept him in character. When you watch him pacing, sweating, barking at cops, it isn't just acting, it's physical exhaustion. Sidney Lumet later revealed he never asked Pacino to do this, but once he saw the actor's intensity, he let it ride. The gamble paid off. Sonny feels like a man burning himself alive from the inside. Pacino's method wasn't glamorous, it was brutal, and it left him nearly collapsing more than once during long shooting days. Fact number 7. The extras were real New Yorkers. Sidney Lumet didn't want polished Hollywood extras standing outside the bank. He wanted Brooklyn. So he hired real neighborhood locals, many of whom lived near the filming location. These weren't professional actors, they were barbers, shopkeepers, and even kids who simply showed up. Their reactions weren't scripted. Lumet often told them nothing about what Pacino would say, capturing genuine shock or excitement. When Pacino screamed, "Attica!" or threatened to blow up the building, their responses were real. Some jeered, some clapped, some cursed at him. That's why the film feels so alive, because the crowd wasn't pretending. It was New York in 1975, raw and unfiltered, caught on film like a time capsule of urban chaos. Fact number 8. The police presence was frighteningly real. Lumet wanted authenticity, but sometimes it went too far. To heighten realism, actual New York police officers were brought in to fill out the barricades. The set swarmed with real uniforms, real guns, and real tension. At times, even cast members forgot who was acting and who wasn't. Al Pacino recalled moments where he looked out and felt genuine fear because he couldn't distinguish film extras from real law enforcement. The energy of that police wall made every scene pulse with danger. What audiences didn't know was that many of those officers were pulling double duty. They were there for the film, but also genuinely securing the chaotic shoot from curious onlookers in the neighborhood. Fact number 9. Pacino insisted on single takes. Al Pacino was notorious for burning out fast during intense emotional scenes. He would throw everything into one explosive take, then beg Lumet not to make him repeat it. Lumet, who had a reputation for fast shooting schedules, agreed. If Pacino nailed it, they moved on. That's why so many moments in Dog Day Afternoon feel raw and unpolished. They weren't rehearsed endlessly, they were captured in one shot. For example, Pacino's desperate phone call to his lover Leon was done in a single, uninterrupted take. The trembling, the tears, the crack in his voice, all real. Lumet called it one of the bravest performances he'd ever filmed. Pacino called it survival, because he didn't think he could get through it twice. Fact number 10. The phone call scene. Almost broke. Pacino. The emotional centerpiece of the film is Sonny's phone call with Leon, played by Chris Sarandon. Pacino locked himself in, holding the receiver for nearly 10 minutes while pouring out Sonny's conflicted love and despair. The crew watched in silence. Some moved to tears. When Lumet finally called "cut," Pacino collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably. He later said it drained him more than any scene he'd ever done. Sarandon, watching from off-camera, was equally shaken. That phone call turned the movie from a crime story into a love story. Critics called it the soul of Dog Day Afternoon. And it was captured in one take, never to be repeated. And if you're blown away by how real this moment feels, go ahead and like and subscribe, because the next 10 facts reveal the chaos, danger, and madness that pushed this film into legend. Fact number 11. Chris Sarandon wasn't the first choice for Leon. The role of Leon, Sonny's anguished partner, almost went to someone else. Studio executives originally pushed for a more conventional actor, someone less risky in portraying a transgender woman at a time when such representation was virtually non-existent in Hollywood. Director Sidney Lumet resisted, arguing he needed an actor with both fragility and fierce truth. Chris Sarandon auditioned and stunned everyone with his vulnerability. He brought Leon's pain and humanity to the forefront, avoiding caricature in a role that could have easily been mishandled. Sarandon later revealed he built Leon's emotions from long talks with real members of New York's LGBTQ community. His performance earned him an Oscar nomination, proving Lumet's instincts were right. What audiences didn't realize was how close the film came to missing this vital emotional heartbeat. Not just casting, it was survival of authenticity. Fact number 12. The film crew. Faced threats from local gangs, shooting in Brooklyn wasn't easy. The neighborhood was buzzing with real crime, and the film's production brought cameras, lights, and lots of attention. Local gangs noticed. Several times, crew trucks were vandalized, and expensive equipment was stolen right off the street. Sidney Lumet had to negotiate with community leaders to ensure safety. Some gang members even demanded protection money to let filming continue without disruption. The gritty environment wasn't just a backdrop, it seeped into the production itself. Pacino later admitted he often felt unsafe just walking to and from set. Ironically, the constant tension only made the cast's performances sharper. The bank robbery might have been fake, but the fear of real violence outside those walls was all too real. Fact number 13. Sidney Lumet kept the camera rolling. Always Lumet believed real magic happened when actors thought the cameras weren't on. So he rarely yelled cut. Instead, he let scenes bleed into each other, capturing moments of silence, exhaustion, or unscripted reactions. Pacino would slump into a chair, Cazale would mutter something under his breath, and suddenly, cinema gold. Many of the hostage interactions we see weren't fully scripted. They were genuine, caught between official takes. Actors began to forget where performance ended and reality began. This relentless style was grueling. Cast members complained they had no breaks, no off switch. But Lumet's method gave the film its natural documentary-like energy. Dog Day Afternoon doesn't feel staged because, much of the time, it wasn't. It was just life, captured in a boiling Brooklyn bank. Fact number 14. Pacino collapsed. During one shoot, the punishing heat, the weight of the role, and his self-imposed starvation finally took their toll. During a long day of shooting, Pacino fainted on set. Crew rushed to revive him, but instead of calling it quits, Pacino begged to continue. Lumet compromised by cutting down the shooting day, but the actor's physical state became a constant concern. Every bead of sweat you see dripping off his face, every labored breath, it wasn't special effects. It was real. Pacino later admitted he put his health on the line because he feared no other performance in his career would be as important. He wasn't wrong. His portrayal of Sonny is still considered one of the greatest in American cinema, born out of a moment when he was nearly breaking apart. Fact number 15. The real hostages visited the set. In a surreal twist, several of the real-life hostages from John Wojtiewicz's 1972 bank heist visited the set during filming. They stood quietly, watching Pacino and Cazale reenact the nightmare they had once lived. Some found it cathartic, others unsettling. One hostage reportedly left in tears, unable to handle the memories. Lumet encouraged them to speak with the actors, hoping to inject even more authenticity into the performances. Pacino was shaken by their presence. He realized he wasn't just playing a character. He was reliving someone else's trauma. The line between reality and performance blurred, leaving cast and crew with a chilling reminder. For some people in Brooklyn, this wasn't entertainment. It was memory turned into art. Fact number 16. The dialogue was largely improvised. Unlike most crime dramas, Dog Day Afternoon didn't rely on tightly scripted dialogue. Sidney Lumet gave his actors outlines of scenes, but encouraged them to improvise, capturing real speech patterns. Pacino thrived on this freedom, throwing in rambling lines, nervous tangents, even jokes that weren't in the script. John Cazale, quiet by nature, often responded with strange pauses or cryptic remarks, moments that made Sal all the more unsettling. The hostages, too, improvised, asking Sonny questions or pleading in their own words. This looseness created a raw, documentary feel, as though the audience was eavesdropping on real chaos. Lumet later said it was the only way to tell this story truthfully, by letting actors stumble, overlap, and contradict themselves. It wasn't polished, it was messy, and that messiness is exactly what made it unforgettable. Fact number 17. The film was shot in chronological order. To heighten realism, Lumet made the rare decision to shoot the movie almost entirely in sequence. From Sonny's first step into the bank to the final ride in the police van, events unfolded for the cast in the same order the audience would see them. This allowed tension to build naturally. As the days wore on, actors became more fatigued, more frustrated, more desperate, just like their characters. Pacino called it one of the most exhausting experiences of his career, but admitted it kept his performance honest. Few films are shot this way because it complicates scheduling and budgets. But for Dog Day Afternoon, the choice paid off. You can feel the slow burn of exhaustion and fear piling up scene by scene exactly as it should. Fact number 18. Warner Brothers almost pulled the plug. The studio hated what it saw in the early dailies. There was no glamorous heist, no slick action, just sweaty people yelling in a bank. Executives feared audiences wouldn't sit through 2 hours of this. At one point, Warner Brothers considered shelving the project altogether. Lumet fought back, insisting they had something revolutionary, a heist film about people, not money. Pacino's star power eventually quieted fears, but even after release, some executives complained the film was too depressing. Ironically, those same elements made it a critical and commercial triumph. The lesson? Sometimes the strangest, most uncommercial instincts are the ones that change cinema forever. Dog Day Afternoon wasn't sleek, it was raw, and that's exactly why it worked. Fact number 19. John Cazale delivered the creepiest ad-lib. One of the most chilling moments comes when a reporter asks Sal which country he'd like to escape to. Without missing a beat, Cazale mutters, "Wyoming." The line wasn't scripted. It wasn't even rehearsed. Cazale invented it on the spot, throwing the entire crew into stunned silence. The absurdity of the answer, naming a U.S. state instead of a foreign country, perfectly captured Sal's confusion and eerie calm. Lumet loved it so much he left it in, calling it pure Cazale. Critics still point to that line as the essence of Sal, a man so lost he couldn't even dream of escape properly. Not Hollywood writing, just a strange, fragile man trapped in his own contradictions. That single improvised word made the character unforgettable. Fact number 20. The ending shocked. Even the cast. The final betrayal, when Sonny is arrested and Sal is killed, was filmed with minimal rehearsal. Lumet wanted the cast to feel the shock of the moment in real time. Cazale was given little warning before the blank shot rang out, and his body slump was painfully authentic. Pacino's horror as Sonny realizes his partner has been executed wasn't rehearsed either. It was genuine reaction to the abruptness of the scene. The set went silent after the take, no one daring to speak. Pacino later said it was one of the most emotionally devastating moments of his career. Not just for Sonny, but for everyone in the room. Art and reality collided in a way that left scars on both actor and audience alike. Bonus fact, the real Sonny sued Warner Brothers. After the film's release, the real John Wojtowicz, whose robbery inspired the story, was furious. He felt the film exaggerated his motives and tarnished his image. So he sued Warner Brothers for a share of the profits. Surprisingly, he won a settlement. Wojtowicz received $7,500 plus a percentage of the film's future earnings. He used part of that money to pay for his partner Elizabeth's gender-affirming surgery, the very reason for the original heist. It was a bizarre full-circle moment. The Hollywood version of his crime ended up funding the very dream that drove him to commit it. Reality and cinema didn't just collide, they intertwined, leaving a legacy stranger than fiction itself. Dog Day Afternoon wasn't just a bank robbery movie, it was a collision of truth and performance, of chaos and craft. It pushed Pacino to the edge, gave John Cazale another haunting showcase, and turned a small Brooklyn crime into cinematic legend. Its legacy still echoes today, not as a polished Hollywood spectacle, but as a raw, desperate scream for humanity in the middle of a hot summer day. If you enjoyed uncovering the secrets behind this classic, hit that like button, subscribe for more movie deep dives, and tell us in the comments which film you want exposed next. Because in Hollywood, the truth is always stranger than the script.